Hey all, just wanted to share a book with you I found in the library the other day. This is The Good Carbohydrate Revolution. The author is Terry Shintani, and he has a nice little opening section here that lists myths about carbohydrates. And I thought I might share it with you. Here's the cover of the book. So, 10 carbohydrate myths dispelled. From these examples, you can see there's a lot of misinformation going around about carbohydrates. Here are 10 common carbohydrate myths that I would like to dispel with some of the information in this book. Myth number 1, all carbohydrates are the same. No, different carbohydrates can have very different effects. A diet high in bad carbohydrates, processed carbohydrates, can cause a rise in blood sugar. A diet high in good carbohydrates, whole carbohydrates, can bring blood sugar under control. Fructose raises blood sugar much less than glucose. Table sugar, which is half glucose and half fructose, is somewhere in between. Starches in the form of white bread raise blood sugar as much as twice as high as starches in the form of whole grains. Myth number 2, carbohydrates make you fat. Wrong. Calories and fat make you fat. Studies comparing the diets of different countries show that populations that eat the most carbohydrate have the lowest rates of obesity. A study comparing diet and body fat indicates that those who eat the most carbohydrate tend to have the least fat percentage. It is possible that bad carbohydrates, white sugar and white bread, can contribute to obesity simply because they are highly concentrated in calories. Myth number 3, carbohydrates turn into fat. Generally wrong. Despite what you may hear, carbohydrates don't turn into fat except in unusual circumstances. Even when you eat a great deal of carbohydrate, almost none of it actually turns into fat. Only when your carbohydrate intake alone exceeds your total caloric expenditure does carbohydrate turn into fat in any appreciable amounts. This won't occur unless you are intentionally force-feeding yourself or eating a large amount of refined carbohydrate. Myth number 4, high carbohydrate foods raise insulin levels more than meat. Not always. For example, beef raises insulin levels 27% more than pasta. Check that out. Beef raises insulin levels 27% more than pasta. That's, and on that note, there's a cool graph in here about that. I'll try and find that. But he listed a variety of items. This insulin effect is this big argument within paleo-primal groups. And the insulin effects of animal products are worse than whole grains. So crazy stuff on that. Anyway, myth number 5, high carbohydrate foods raise insulin levels more than dairy. Not always. While dairy foods typically have a moderate effect on blood sugar, their impact on blood insulin levels is up to 3 times higher than its blood sugar effect might suggest. Most dairy products raise insulin levels 90 to 98% as high as white bread does. Fruit-flavored yogurt raises insulin levels 15% higher than white bread and 85% higher than brown rice. Myth 6, complex carbohydrates, starches, are always better than simple carbohydrates, sugar. This is an interesting one. Wrong. While complex carbohydrates from whole grains raise blood sugar moderately, complex carbohydrates from white bread actually raise blood sugar more than simple carbohydrates from white sugar. Myth 7, carbohydrates are less satisfying than fat. Incorrect. Fats falsely appear to satisfy the most because they are so highly concentrated in calories. Even a small amount seems to be very satisfying. In reality, even a small amount of fat provides a large amount of calories. Scientific studies comparing satisfaction levels confirm that calorie per calorie, carbohydrates are more satisfying than fat. And of course, if you rely on fat as your primary source for energy, you are not going to have enough energy, man. You're going to be hurting. All right, so myth number 8, carbohydrates cause diabetes. No, Neither sugar nor starch causes diabetes. Carbohydrates are harder to handle when you have diabetes, but they don't cause it. It's more likely that fat and obesity contribute to diabetes. Myth number 9, carrots, brown rice, and corn are bad for you. Wrong. This myth is due to the mechanical reliance on a table called the glycemic index, without considering that these foods are moderate to low in calorie density. Because of the calorie density of these foods, an average person will tend to consume fewer calories from them over time than from higher calorie density foods. As a result, the blood sugar and insulin responses to these foods are very moderate. The truth is that these are among the healthiest foods for you. He has a whole chapter devoted to the glycemic index. You know, another popular fall guy in, like Sugar Busters and these, low carb, high protein, high fat diets. Myth number 10, high carbohydrate diets promote diabetes and heart disease. Wrong again. In general, a high carbohydrate diet can prevent diabetes and heart disease if it is low in fat and based on good carbohydrates. The good carbohydrate plan can be very high in carbohydrates, as high as 78%. You know, that'll sound very normal to 80-10-10ers, as high as 78%, and causes a reduction in blood sugar, triglycerides, cholesterol, and the risk of coronary heart disease. Other research on high carbohydrate diets and their effect on blood sugar and cholesterol confirm this effect. So those are 10 myths kind of debunked right there. A beautiful summary there of myths about carbohydrates. And let me see if real quick I can find this reference to comparing animal product foods and carbohydrate foods in terms of insulin response. Let's see here, chapter. Blood sugar response to high-fat diet. Well, here's an interesting graph. I'll put it up here. Doesn't look like too clear for you guys, but the general gist of it is, of course, that high fats cause problems in terms of blood sugar. Let's see. The good carbohydrate plan helps to control cholesterol and risk of heart disease. The good carbohydrate plan, of course, reduces cholesterol and the risk of coronary heart disease in 3 ways. It helps to control blood sugar, which helps to control the release of insulin. It is high in fiber, which helps to bind cholesterol in the digestive tract and reduce the absorption of cholesterol. And third, it is low in total fat, saturated fat, and cholesterol, so blood cholesterol levels are likely to be reduced. Anyway, good book. Of course, fiber's in here, which of course you get a ton more fiber from a plant-based diet than you do from a diet high in animal products. Here's one, blood sugar response to different forms of the same food. Apple juice, apple sauce, whole intact apple. That's interesting. I'm sure you can guess the results of that graph. Glycemic index. Anyway, so that gives you an idea. So again, the book is Good Carbohydrate Revolution, Terry Shintani. I think that's how you pronounce it. Was published in 2001, so it's been out for a while. But it's amazing how little we hear about carbohydrate diets and how much we hear about these high protein, high fat diets. I wonder if that has anything to do with vested interests like the meat and dairy industry, or could it at all be laid at the feet of people who simply don't want to change habits that they've had since they were children, who are essentially unconscious as to the consequences of buying meat and how meat is produced and the environmental damage that's caused by meat and animal product production. Anyway, thanks for listening. See you all soon. I'm going to do some more of these book reviews. I got a couple of the other books, not necessarily all diet books, but I kind of thought I'd share some books with you that I really like. So we'll do some of those. Talk to you later.